Should we do this one next? You guys that were here at the first session, a lot of you were here. Do you remember what I said the #1 problem in the state of Iowa was back in, when was your first session here? Early June? Yep, early June. What was the #1 problem in the state of Iowa? Rootless corn syndrome. Does anybody remember what the second statement I said was related to rootless corn syndrome? Well, or cultivate, but nobody did, and it didn't rain, so it wouldn't have mattered because you need moisture in that cultivated dirt to get roots to grow again. But I said it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving, and it is. This plant here started out as rootless corn syndrome, has very, very few roots, and I also said I'm going to feel sorry for Monsanto or anybody that sells BT rootworm traits, because come July, when the corn falls down, everybody's going to blame rootworm. This was not rootworm initially that did this part of the root. It looks like it. You'd swear that's a rootworm problem, but it was not rootworm that caused this problem. It was rootless corn when the plant was only 6-8 inches tall, flopping all over the ground. So then along comes a few more roots. We never did develop good roots, Tim, because we never had good adequate moisture to get those things going in some areas. Some areas they did, and it tried to reroot. So then I have a plant that's growing, even though it doesn't have much to live on. What nutrients probably going to be kind of short in this plant? Potash is one, but I'm thinking of, what is BT? It's a protein, right? What is the chemical element in protein? Nitrogen. So I had 200 pounds of N on this field. I had this many roots. Is the nitrogen supply going to be adequate inside that plant? No. So how do I get a protein to express itself if I have a limited amount of nitrogen? And by the way, some of the tissue samples came back showing we were short of nitrogen. What level of BT will be expressed when I have a nitrogen deficiency? It'll be low. Now, the BT trait for rootworm, is it a high dose or low dose trait? In other words, is it really, really toxic to rootworm larvae, or is it sort of toxic to rootworm larvae? It's sort of toxic. Low dose. They got to eat, but they got to eat enough to die. Well, it's a low dose. I got low expression. And Dan, how many larvae have we been seeing?
In some of these fields, you dug up the plants and you looked at the, and you could count them, but it looked like basically a bunch of rice out there.
The first thought I thought of is, have you ever seen a dead animal when the maggots are in them? That's how bad the larvae were coming out of some of these roots. That's the way I looked at it. And so now I have a few of these brace roots trying to form, and if I had moisture, maybe they'd try to form a little better. But there's nothing there for them to eat, and there's so many of them, they still have to eat to die. And now you got dry weather, rootworm, rootless corn, nutrient deficiency. And this is not uncommon. It's still the #1 problem in the state of Iowa, whether you realize it or not. Some fields are still standing beautiful, but you can walk out there and pull these out with one hand, you know you got a problem.